Clarify, none of those rings are with Toronto, right?
Is Fraser Minton going to have more points than Safkovsky this year? Fraser Minton sucks at hockey. This guy might not even be an NHLer, so we got to settle down on that one.
Adelaide, no. Minus 160 on will they show her holding a drink in her hand.
They are 2 points behind the St. Louis Blues in the wild card, and they are.
Oh, the Blues are dog water. The Blues suck. The Blues are the worst of those 4 teams that I mentioned by a mile.
And
they're not a good hockey team.
Care, like have some set of balls, have some response, have some pride for what the hell goes on the ice. It's so absurd.
I'm looking forward to the parade, but that's going to be later in the year.
I'd rather have so money in that than have Alber Soderblom. I would rather stack a bunch of garbage that I have in the corner of my room over here than have Alber Soderblom in that. He's
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Edgework, part of the Hammer Betting Network, live here on the Edgework HQ YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jason. You can follow me on Twitter at TakesByJ. Joined alongside Alex B. Smith and So Money Sports, the crew that you know and love. Zach is away. He's saving the booby bird out in Muskoka right now. So if you guys can go send him some well wishes on Twitter while he's doing some great charity work, please go do that. So I'm filling in for him here today. Going to be running through the show with you guys. We're going to be talking about, obviously, Florida, New York, Game 1. Kind of a quick rundown on that game and then preview Game 2. And then the same thing for the Dallas-Edmonton game. I was a little bit worried last night that I might be staying up for a triple OT, but no, they closed it out. Edmonton closed it out in the second OT there. We'll be running down that game as well. And then previewing Game 2 for the Dallas-Edmonton series. Talk about some best bets and just recap the bets we had from the previous show. Before we get into anything, though, just want to remind you guys that Pinnacle is one of our sponsors, and we really appreciate their sponsorship. Guys, if you're not betting at Pinnacle for playoff hockey, playoff basketball, NFL futures, NCAA futures, or any sport for that matter, you're doing it wrong. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook, offering competitive odds for over 25 years. If you're looking to get the best price on some money lines, puck lines, or anything, make sure you check out Pinnacle, your trusted sportsbook. Not available in the U.S., and please play it responsibly. Let's dive right into the Florida-New York game. Biggest takeaway for me from that game was that pre-series, I felt like it was going to be kind of a Florida versus a goalie kind of thing. I feel like New York's biggest edge for their team is that their goaltending, Shesterkin, has been really good for them. But Bobrovsky seems to kind of have neutralized that in the sense that he played better than Shesterkin that first game. Alex, I see you nodding your head. So kind of give me a breakdown on your thoughts on the first game between Florida and New York.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought the goaltenders were going to loom large in this series, and that's been the case through the first 60 minutes of play. And you know, Bobrovsky, I mean, we saw what he did last postseason after having a terrible regular season. But he had a great regular season this year, and he's been able to kind of carry that momentum on. So in the last calendar year, he's already been playing the best hockey of his career at the 35, going to 36 years of age. So I certainly didn't think that the edge in goaltending would be highly in favor of the Rangers. I thought it'd actually be kind of almost pretty balanced. And Shesterkin, give him credit. I mean, the shot that he faced, it wasn't his fault. That second goal, that was a redirect off of own player's stick. So he played fairly well. And I think the biggest takeaway was that the pace, seeing that both these teams had days off and they had time to rest, I thought the pace early in the game was going to move a little bit faster than it did. We saw the pace kind of increase over time, but obviously, Florida, they're going to make it a point to try to, use their cycle game and slow things down with the Rangers, because they know the Rangers have a formidable enough offense where if they start trading goals back and forth, the Rangers can hang around with them. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, again, it's it seems to be, again, the goaltending battle here. So Money, what are your thoughts on game 1, from the New York Rangers and the Florida Panthers?
Yeah, I thought it was Rangers were pretty hesitant in Game 1. I don't want to say complacent, because you don't want to use the word complacent in Game 1 of a conference final, but I thought they were very hesitant. I thought that they allowed Florida to dictate the way that Florida wants this series to go and the way that they wanted that game to be played. Specifically, Florida's forecheck. Obviously, Florida has a heavy forecheck. They were able to get on the Rangers. And how do you counter a forecheck, right? So what the Rangers were doing is that they were trying to force plays through the neutral zone, right? They weren't making the simple pass to get out of their zone. It was always forcing it through the neutral zone. And now the thing is that when they were playing Carolina, it was a different stylistic matchup, because Carolina wants to keep coming at you in waves, and the way that you attack that is by countering on the counter attack, and the Rangers are very good with that. But what was happening with Florida in Game 1 is that excuse me, they weren't getting that counter opportunity because Florida doesn't come at you in waves. They will establish the forecheck. They will play a grinding kind of neutral zone game, and that's where the Rangers got stuck. They had no response. So I think we'll see a better response from the Rangers. We've seen that all year, where Laviolette, being the lead coach that he is, he has been able to make adjustments, especially after playing the same team after they've lost. He's very capable of that. So the stuff I've been reading up on and like kind of looking at through with the Rangers camp is that they do want to simplify their game as if they're playing a road game here, right? And I think that that's gonna benefit them. We see this all the time, right? When you have a stylistic change between series, sometimes it takes a while for teams to adjust that you're not playing the previous series anymore, so you cannot play that same way anymore, right? There was a certain way that the Rangers were able to play against Carolina where they could sit back and counter. You can't sit back against Florida because they'll grind you on the forecheck, right? So I think that's going to be the biggest adjustment for the Rangers. I expect them to have a very simple game plan. Hopefully they'll be able to convert on some of their chances. So I did bet the Rangers today. There is an edge. I think that up to minus 112 is where up to minus 12 is where I had it. So we can go ahead and lock in the Rangers, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to lock it in at minus 105, which is pretty widely available here. Excuse me. It's interesting to see because sorry guys, the worst time for the frog to catch my throat there. I'm just looking back at the previous bets from last show, and it's funny because you're talking about switching styles between series, because when you're playing a team, for 4, 5, 6, 7 games, you really you really have to play them a certain way. And I think it was Alex Moretto who brought it up on last show where they're talking about the over in the previous game. Now that missed. They're talking about the over in the Florida New York game. I think it was the last 18 games that Florida New York has played. They went the over hit or something along those lines.
19 in a row, yeah.
19, yeah, something like that. So it just goes to show you how the style of play really differs here. So Money, you locked in the New York Rangers minus 105. Alex, you have another bet for us, so why don't you give it to us here?
Yeah, I have the over 1.5 in the first period. I got plus 105 with that, and I think it's predicated based on what kind of in the same thinking of So Money, where he's looking at the Rangers. They can't afford to sit back now in Game 2, being at home, knowing that you're kind of playing into the style of Florida. If you kind of are a bit more conservative and possessing the puck a bit more, Florida will find a way to kind of draw you out. So they have to get things rolling a little bit earlier, and they need to get on the board first. Use that Madison Square Garden crowd to their advantage. I think we will see a lot more wide open first period in Game 2 than we did in Game 1. So getting plus money at with the over in the first period, I think that's some good value there. So grab that plus 105, see a plus 100. So anything plus money there with that first period over, definitely worth a wager for me.
Sorry, the over 1.5 in the first period here, plus 105 seems to be pretty widely available. A couple other plus 104s, tons of plus 105s out there though. If you don't have those sports books, what are you doing? Open up more sports books here. It seems like Charles Saul, we're already getting some Alber shade in the chat. Kreider basically called out Alber post game, said he's killing the Rangers with the state of the ice. I mean, Alber, if you're watching this, you got to work harder with shoveling that ice. That's just crazy. What happened to the home ice advantage there? I'm gonna point towards the chat quickly. Insights dropping a couple of player props here. Just want to get your thoughts on them. Quick yes or no. Adam Fox under 0.5 points minus 110. So Money.
Depends. If the Rangers are able to they do want to get the defenseman up on the play. That's been a focal point the last couple of days. So Um, it it is correlated in the sense of like if the Rangers lose this game, it's because the same things happened in game one, right? They weren't able to push forward, or they forced pushing forward, and they were grinded down by Florida's forecheck. So depends how you view this game. If the Rangers win this game, then I don't like that play. Um, if that Adam Fox play hits, then in this particular game, the same thing happened. That happened in game one, which means that Fox was not able to get going. So it depends how you view the game here. If you think Florida's going to win, then yeah, I think that Adam Fox under, Panarin under, obviously that would make sense here.
Oh yes, flipping over to Alex Reinhart under 0.5 points plus 140. Just your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean that's tough. He's a guy who has been very electric as far as scoring throughout the entire year. Like I said, with this, I think it's going to be a bit more of an up and down pace in this contest compared to game one. So I wouldn't be taking any player props under necessarily. That's not something that I normally do anyway. I'm usually kind of looking for overs or nothing as far as player props are concerned.
Yeah, fair enough here. All right, that's pretty much it for the New York and Florida game. Locked in two best bets there. Going to flash them up on the screen quickly right here so that people who are watching after fact can see New York minus 105 and the Pittsburgh or Florida, New York over 1.5 plus 105. Let's flip over to the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers game. I'm sure you guys were watching last night. I mean, I really thought Dallas had the edge in the first period there and in the first part of the game, but then Edmonton kind of took over. Dallas tied it up late in the game. And then we were going through a one overtime where Connor McDavid misses basically a wide open net and shoots the puck at the only spot where he could, where Ottinger could save it. And then, he makes up for it 30 seconds into second overtime and seals the deal and gives Edmonton the leg up in the series. So, Money, I want your thoughts and opinions on that first game. What did you see differently kind of from the Edmonton Oilers compared to the previous series? Did it look like the same Oilers team? Did you feel like they were doing a little bit more? Just give me your thoughts on the game in general.
I didn't see anything different from the Oilers. I think that the Oilers are playing exactly the way that they need to play to have success. From the second period in Game 6 against the Canucks, it just seems that there's just been some sort of switch, right? They've gotten much better defensively, and not just individually, right? As their team unit, they've gotten back to the way that they've been playing most of the year after they got off to their poor start. So there seems to be a kind of a re-buy-in on the way that this team needs to play to have success. And I started noticing that in the second period of Game 6, and I was sitting there. You just knew. You just knew what was going to happen. I was sitting there. I was like, "Oh shit!" Right? Like the series is done. Right? So I mean, I'm still going through it. I'm not over the loss, but obviously, yeah, you have to give the Warriors a ton of credit. They've bought in again. They know what got them here to this point. They kind of lost it against the Canucks. Yes, it had to do with goaltending, which brings me actually to something I wanted to touch on that I didn't get a chance yet. Game 4 and Game 5, the Oilers started Pickard, right? Mm-hmm. Now, he won Game 4. He lost Game 5, but it wasn't as if he looked horrible just by looking at the numbers, right? But and I brought this up last week when I was watching him, is that his positioning was terrible, right? Like there were a lot of situations where the Canucks were shooting it right at his chest when they had wide open nets, right? Because he was cheating too much. He was overcommitting on the play. He was off his line. It was clearly evident watching him play that that's what was happening. In Game 6, right, they started Skinner. What a big ballsy move that was, because nobody would have blamed Knobloch if he went back to Pickard, right? Because just looking at the numbers, there was nothing wrong with him, right? He goes after Skinner, puts his balls on the line, because if Skinner has a bad game, that's on him now, right? You went back to Skinner knowing that he's struggling, right? So I mean, just like looking back at that move, like I love that kind of stuff, right? Because you didn't just look at the surface numbers. You didn't just look at, well, he gave up 3 goals. None of them were really his fault, I guess. Like, and like we know Skinner sucks now, so like we're okay making the safe play going back with Pickard, right? Fuck that. They went back to Skinner, right? They had faith in their guy, and look at how he's done the last 3 games, right? So that's I wanted to bring that up because you don't see those kind of moves a lot. You see coaches making the safe play a lot of times. So when a coach comes out of the shell, goes out of the box like that, I think that he needs to be applauded, right? So great move by the Oilers going back to Skinner in Game 6. The results are there now for Skinner, and we're seeing a rebuy-in defensively. In terms of Dallas played their game too, right? This series is really tight. There's not much separating these two teams. Maybe with Hintz hopefully getting back to full strength, that's going to propel Dallas a little bit, give them a little bit more of an edge. But other than that, I think that it's a tight series. Not surprising it went to overtime. I think that a lot of these games are going to be played out like this. So it's going to be fascinating here.
Yeah, it really all depends on Dallas. It feels like shutting down that the best players, obviously, of Edmonton. I know that's easy to say, and that sounds maybe a little cliche, but it really is what it comes down to. Because if you can stop Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and even I'll throw in Evan Bouchard in there because he's been, I feel like, lights out this playoffs. Like that's the way, that's the path to victory for the Dallas Stars. Because then, whatever, all the 30 other minutes of ice time, because those guys get crazy minutes, you should be winning those minutes then for sure. So as long as you can neutralize the first 30 where you're playing McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard, you got to try and win the next 30. So Alex, what are your thoughts on this series in Game 1 so far?
Well, the biggest takeaway for me was how Dallas, did not take advantage of those power play opportunities, especially the one in overtime, that 4-minute double minor with Connor McDavid. And it's just, you got to have better pushback. You have to have cleaner passing, cleaner entries into the zone if you're going to beat any team, but certainly an Edmonton team when they give you those opportunities. So that's the biggest takeaway for me is that, like I said, this is going to be a tight series. We know Dallas can't afford to have a parade to the penalty box. Edmonton will absolutely murder them if that's the case. But Dallas has to take advantage of those spots whenever Edmonton is in the box as well. So special teams play is going to be the biggest X factor here. As far as goaltending, like I said, even with Skinner having a new lease on life and a new confidence and the defense playing in front of him, the goaltending edge still in my book goes to Ottinger. But that said, like I said, you have to take advantage of those. It's going to be the play that isn't 5-on-5 that really dictates who wins the series, in my opinion.
Special teams, special plays, special players. Let's move on to the Game 2. Preview that quickly. I don't know if you guys have come around to anything yet. I don't think we'll have any best bets here, but just give me your general thoughts on how you expect or how you see Game 2 going. So Manny, we'll start with you.
Yeah, if we can get I don't think we're going to get it because we've seen it adjusted down already, but under 6 is the way that I'd be looking again. I do feel that both these teams respect each other's offensive games, that there is going to be a focus on defense here in this series. I don't think that we'll see the kind of wide open style that we saw in Dallas, Colorado, or even some parts of probably Game 6 of like Edmonton, Vancouver, where it got pretty open there for a bit. So as we've said, right, like Edmonton has gotten comfortable playing this style of play now. Dallas has always been comfortable playing this style of play when they want to. So I think that if that number does come back towards a flat 6, that's where I would be at right now. I think the 6 at -120s is out of range right now. So we'll wait for it to see. Hopefully game day it comes back around a bit, but under 6, flat under 6 is where I'm targeting that.
And you're looking at like probably a -110 is what the number that you played up until, right? Okay, yeah. So it's -120 right now that's available. So maybe wait for that to trickle down a little bit. Keep your eye on it. Keep your eye on BetStamp here. Alex, any thoughts on the Oilers Stars game 2?
Well, no, the biggest thing I would mention is that for people, if you like Dallas to come back and win this series, now's the time to jump in and grab. You can get, I think, as high as plus 165 is the highest number I saw for Dallas to win the series. Don't lay 140, lay 150. Go on and grab the series price, and then you can, have a position, and then you can find a way to adjust out of it if need be down the road. But that's the only thing I'm kind of looking at. I'm already pot committed with. I actually had Edmonton to win game 1, Dallas to win the series plus 475. So I now have a plus 475 series price essentially hanging around. So I probably won't be doing much of anything in game 2.
All right, fair enough here. Just one question in the chat. This is directed at so many. Any Conn Smythe looks? E. Colt mentioned Bobrovsky 11-1.
I really want to get there on Bobrovsky. I really do, because I think that there is value there. The problem is with Florida right now is that you can make a strong case for Tkachuk and you can make a strong case for Barkov as well. Right? So even though there's value on Bobrovsky, it's really tough for me to get there, because just in terms of how the voters usually vote on these things, right? Like, Tkachuk hasn't had the flashy moments that he had last year in the playoffs, but he's been a beast all around, right? And Barkov, there's a story with Barkov as well, because historically he hasn't had the best playoffs. The Panthers locals will tell you that. But this year he has stepped up his game in the playoffs. And then you have a guy like Verhaeghe, right? Who's a kind of a long shot at this moment, but we've seen with Verhaeghe that he can score in bunches, right? And especially if you kind of need to map out the way that the playoffs would go and kind of get into the voters' heads, right? So if it's a Florida Dallas, for example, Stanley Cup final, then if Florida wins that, it's on the heels of them scoring, which means Carter Verhaeghe, or them keeping Dallas off the score sheet, which means Bobrovsky, right? If it's Florida Edmonton, then that's a different path, because that's going to be a more grinding series, which means that it was probably Tkachuk that made the difference if Florida beats Edmonton, right? So right now, there's just too many factors and too many players who can make a strong case depending on the matchup. So if you want to play Bobrovsky small because of the number, I think that there's an edge there, but I would not do anything crazy at this point, because Florida has too many guys right now that are elite, top shelf in form right now. So that's really tough for me to get involved, other than if you do want to play Bobrovsky small, but I would keep it small. There's just too many guys on Florida right now.
Now, my counterpoint to that is actually that I would actually go with Bobrovsky because of the fact that there are 3 players who are skaters that are in front. That if all 3 of them have great series down the road, then they all kind of logjam one another, and then what everybody's going to look at is, oh well, Bobrovsky was the goalie in that, who and he got a shutout already. There's a reason why it's 11-1 now. That was actually 17-1 before the series started. So there's been movement on that with good reason, and I think that's the kind of thing to look at when you're looking at Conn Smythe futures at this point. You want to look at, obviously, there's going to be 2 or 3 guys that really stand out, and there's a reason why we're seeing Ottinger being the favorite. Shesterkin was the favorite for the majority of the time, because it seems like the skaters can kind of almost cancel each other out, and then it's great goaltending play. That's what tends to stand out to the voters. So if I had to pick anybody for Florida to take a shot with, it would be Bobrovsky, because of the fact that, well, you got to sort through what has Tkachuk done more than Verhaeghe, what's Verhaeghe done more than Barkov. You get into that kind of a loop. You just look at, well, what has Bobrovsky done, and he's had a wonderful postseason. So.
Yeah, and it sounds silly, but that's 7 more wins for Bobrovsky if they win the Stanley Cup. So, I love the point there from Alex that the not the stars for the, I guess the stars for the Panthers, the best players for the Panthers can cannibalize themselves in the voting process here, and Bobrovsky could simply stick out in people's mind. But again, don't want to do too much, because again, you're kind of getting like the worst price in the market. Like, why wait right after a if you want to bet on Bobrovsky, maybe hope that he has a bad game and then kind of go for it. But yeah, like waiting right after a shutout is probably not the best time to bet him in market. That wraps up the show for us today. Going to bring up our best bets that we played earlier. No bets for the Edmonton-Dallas game.
Sorry, Jason. One more
ahead.
thing. I just want to touch on Mike's question there, or his comment about the Canucks.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't disagree, and this actually takes me back to the year that the Canucks traded Corey Schneider to New Jersey, and then they got Bo Horvat out of that pick, right? So there is precedent, and there is precedent in Vancouver, right? When you have two strong goalies, that you're quickly going to flip one. It happened with Schneider Luongo. It happened with Markstrom Demko, right? So there is precedent for that. My only concern is that the way that this team is built right now, they're not that far away. So there's no reason to right now to make a move like that where you just flip Demko. I'm open to the conversation because Demko has shown that there might be durability issues, but I don't think that that's an indictment on Demko. I think that's more so on the team for not managing his workload properly, right? Like when the team had a big lead in the Pacific Division this year, there's no reason why Demko should have been playing all those games in February, right? Like you brought in Casey DeSmith for a reason. There was a game in Chicago, sorry, Alex, where Chicago had scored like one goal for 11 straight games, and you have Demko starting in net, right? Like there's no reason for that kind of stuff, right? So I think that from an organizational standpoint, there is going to be more of a focus on developing Shilovs, as well as making sure that Demko is not in a position where he's going to be breaking down later in the season. So I think that rather than flipping one guy, when you are pretty close now, you're just about 2-3 pieces away and some experience away from being a legitimate cup contender. I think that there's no reason to be making that kind of move right now when you already have elite goaltending within your organization. So even though I'm open to the conversation, the way where the Canucks are in their contending trajectory, I don't feel that would be the right move at this moment.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. Artur Silovs, excuse me, is only 23 years old. He's still an RFA. He's locked up for, I guess, 3 to 4 more years. He's not going to be making a ton of money over the next 2 years. I'm going to tell you guys that right now, just because, again, he did look good in the playoffs, but he had 10 games with an .898 save percentage. There's no way you can justify him getting a big deal or a large deal out of this. He's going to make under $2 million, probably maybe under $1 million over the next 2 years. And then you have a pretty good tandem there in Demko and Silovs, where if Demko ever falters, you can lean back on Silovs, and that tandem is making like what, $6 million maybe at most.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that you're almost like killing the value of your team if you do that. So anyways, I fully agree with that. And again, we're not in the off season just yet, but in my mind, I've been in the off season since the leagues have been out. So yeah, if you love off season content, be sure to subscribe to us here over on the Edgework HQ YouTube channel. And if you love playoff content as well, make sure you subscribe to the Edgework HQ YouTube channel. Don't forget to leave a like before we head out, guys. It's really appreciated. And also just leave a comment on the video if you're watching this after the fact, just saying thanks, Zach, for saving the booby birds out in Muskoka, because yeah, he's doing good work out there. Charity work, it's important. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Jason. That was Alex. That was So Money Sports. This has been Edgework HQ on the Hammer Betting Network. We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one, everyone.